Good afternoon. I'm Tom McFadyen, and I'm pleased to chat with you today about marketplaces, the future of retail on NRF NXT All Access session here. Today, we'll talk about the marketplace landscape, who some of the players are, what some of the trends are, talk about how you can create your own marketplace in a retail setting, quickly talk about some success stories, and then dig into some live Q&A. First, let me kick off with a little bit of context and one slide about McFadyen, then we'll jump into the real content about marketplaces. We've been building large-scale marketplaces, enterprise-scale, billion-dollar, million SKU type platforms for quite a while. We've been building integrations, IT transformations for a third of a century, e-commerce since the late 90s, and for over a decade, we've been building large-scale marketplaces for dozens of clients and cumulatively generating billions of dollars of GMV on marketplaces. McFadyen Digital has hundreds of employees across 3 continents, providing onshore, nearshore, and offshore services to our clients. And probably what we're most proud of is the awards that our clients receive for the marketplaces that we've helped them build and launch and drive success with. From e-commerce platforms to Miracle, which is a great platform for building marketplace solutions. So enough about us. Let's get into our real topic for today. Why should you consider a marketplace? First off, as the saying goes, you should fish where the fish are. So 92% of consumers shop from marketplaces, and more than half shop from marketplaces other than Amazon. More than half of the total B2C e-commerce happens from marketplaces. And these are statistics coming from almost every analyst you can think of that follows the retail space. Digital Commerce 360 reported just recently 57% of global commerce happens on marketplaces. IDC predicts that's going to grow to about 75% in the next year or two. A little while ago, Core Site Research indicated they expect marketplace platform revenues to double by 2022. Currently, over half a $500 billion of GMV is sold on U.S. marketplaces, retail gross merchandise value. And not just the big marketplaces, the Amazons and eBays and Walmarts of the world, but Gartner predicts that 15% of all e-commerce organizations or medium to high scale e-commerce organizations will have deployed their own marketplace by 2023. Speaking of which, Best Buy Canada is an example of that stated recently at a conference that they thought they'd start off with a marketplace as a little test pilot and essentially transformed in a couple of years into becoming a marketplace in which they are the leading seller on that marketplace. They transformed their business from being a first-party retailer to being a marketplace in which they are one of the sellers. Essentially, this analysts and the trends indicate that everybody needs a marketplace strategy. It may not be immediately, but it is definitely a major factor in the industry to consider. So as I mentioned, it's not just Amazon and eBay that are driving this marketplace trend. There are lots of other companies doing over $1 billion of gross merchandise value, GMV, on their marketplace. And these numbers are indicative of just the marketplace sales or revenue. So Walmart, of course, doing over $1 billion of GMV. Lots of companies doing half a billion, $250 million, and many, many more in the $100 million plus level of sales. And again, these are just the product marketplaces. You also have to add on top of this the services marketplaces. So if you consider an Uber, Instacart, Airbnb, those are marketplaces selling services. Here we're really just looking at only the product traditional e-commerce marketplaces. So a lot of companies making a lot of money in marketplaces. Not only is there a lot of revenue or gross merchandise value, GMV driven to those, the amount of traffic driven to marketplaces is huge. If you look below the level of Amazon and eBay, we see a dozen sites doing over 100 million visits per month from a retail traffic. Who wouldn't like over 100 million site visits per month on their e-commerce site? Marketplaces drive that traffic because they drive sellers, that drive SKUs, that drive customers, which we'll talk about that virtuous cycle in a second. So 2 of the biggest marketplaces in the U.S., and again, a lot of today's presentation is focused more on the U.S. There are huge competitors also in China and other parts of the world. We did a pretty detailed analysis of Amazon versus Walmart and their marketplaces and how they're growing. Walmart's definitely investing a lot more in their marketplace. If you look on LinkedIn and search for Amazon versus Walmart marketplace, we have a pretty detailed article there comparing a lot of these statistics in terms of sales growth, profit, market cap, employees, a lot of these factors, and how marketplaces drive a lot of these changes in success for a marketplace operator. But let's quickly look at one of them, Amazon. You can see how drastically their revenue has grown in their marketplace. So about $50 billion of revenue increase, 50 billion of increase, not gross, but the increase in sales on their marketplace per year. Huge amount of growth in their marketplace. Over 300 million products listed, most of those from 3 million plus sellers, third-party sellers selling that inventory. So obviously, big driver in Amazon. More than half of their revenue comes from these third-party sellers. Walmart also is, of course, making some more changes into the marketplace world with rapid addition of new sellers. They have a recent partnership with Shopify to add even more sellers. Shopify hosts over 1 million small retailer sites, and those retailers can now easily integrate and add their products onto the Walmart marketplace. Not quite the scale of Amazon, but still healthy number of products. And you can see the shift from 5 million to almost 50 million, almost a tenfold increase in the catalog size because they've added third-party sellers into their marketplace. Again, a lot more details on that in that LinkedIn article of Amazon versus Walmart, and a lot of graphs and details on that if you want to look that up on LinkedIn. Most of you have probably seen Jeff Bezos' sketch of the virtuous marketplace cycle, the virtuous cycle, or the flywheel effect. As you add more sellers, you get greater selection, you get better customer experience, and drives more traffic. We have a similar diagram of that, which in the center, looking at adding more products from more sellers, drives more customers, drives more sales. As that inner circle keeps spinning, you get more profits. And as your marketplace gains momentum, you're going to have more sellers from which you can collect more data, learn more about market trends, what's selling well, what's not. Increase your assortment, both online and in-store, to drive more store traffic. And again, keep this virtuous cycle spinning through the benefits of the retail marketplace. So how do you go about doing it? Well, we have a pretty detailed 24-page PDF that describes this. Here's just one snapshot from it, which you cannot read here. But if you go to this URL, www.mcfadyen.com/MMM for marketplace maturity model, you can download a very detailed white paper about that. But let's dig into a little bit of that here, and we'll look at the 5 levels of that marketplace maturity model, which describes what you can do, how you can do it, and some of the enablement steps along that process. Everybody's familiar with first-party e-commerce. This really came out a quarter century ago, where you stock your inventory. We'll get into these in a little bit more detail in the next slides. Dropship is a minor incremental improvement on that, where you can have third-party shipping things, but really the third-party marketplace, or level 3, is where we're going to jump into a lot of detail of the benefit of a marketplace. And then, much like the CMM, if you're familiar with capability maturity model, or CMMI for software development, you start getting into more quantitative management, where the metrics drive the decisions, the automation of the system, and your business strategy. And the 5th level, optimizing, where you're constantly improving your business model. So let's dive into each of those 5 levels in a little bit more detail. So pretty simple diagram here. As an e-commerce operator, you, the retailer, have to source your products, meaning you have to find them. You have to negotiate purchase contracts with every vendor, purchase agreements for each price. You generally have to merchandise each product, meaning create or upload the image. If you're doing your own photography, that's fairly time consuming. Ensure that your text for your merchandising descriptions is SEO optimized and well written to attract customers. You have to hold the inventory, both physically and financially. So you have to carry the cost of that inventory in your distribution centers or fulfillment centers. You have to handle delivering the product and also customer support. You set the prices, so you're at risk of whether a product is going to actually be sold at margin or below margin for the net margin of that product as the operator. So again, it's more of a pipeline. We'll talk about pipeline versus platform. Some of you may have heard of the platform revolution or the platform economy. That's where level 3 comes in. But essentially, it's a pipeline where you add inventory into your site that goes to the buyers. So it's somewhat of a linear process. You, the e-commerce operator, have to merchandise, add every single product into your inventory, stock it, put it on your site, and ship it to buyers. Let's look at level 2. Again, just an incremental improvement over first-party e-commerce. This is the dropship model. So this may be, for example, something that's bulky, heavy, hazardous goods, low volume, it's only seasonal sale. You may have third-party dropshippers or second-party dropshippers that will fulfill that. They'll hold the inventory. In many cases, it's the actual manufacturer of, let's say, a sofa or a 1,000-gallon tank or some hazardous material that you don't want to stock. So you still have to source those products. You have to negotiate purchase product contracts for each of those products in terms of negotiating the pricing. You have to generally merchandise those, set the prices. You're dealing with arbitrage and ensuring that you get a margin on that. And the drop shippers also have to do that. They have to negotiate those contracts. We've worked with some clients where that process of negotiating contracts, adding new vendors into their ERP system, adding new products into their ERP, and then flowing that into their PIM and e-commerce system, PIM being product information management system, that can take a month or two. In fact, some retailers we've seen so far behind the curve on hot trends that they miss the hot trends on some hot selling items. So there's still some limitations in the dropship model, but it does enable you to add to your catalog incrementally and ship items that you don't want to stock. But the third-party marketplace, this is where we really get to become a platform economy business or a platform model, or you've heard the term platform your business. So in this model, third-party sellers, you essentially outsource a lot of that work. They source all the products. They merchandise the products. They're responsible for loading in the images, the text, the setting the prices as well. So they're at risk whether something's going to sell at a margin or not. You, the marketplace operator, you take a commission. So it can be 15%, 20%, 25%. It often varies by category. You can also have incentives and so forth. So you're not actually handling the arbitrage of, is this price going to be a profitable price to sell the product? You take 15%, 20% commission, regardless of whether the seller makes profit or not on it. The seller delivers the product. Oftentimes they also handle customer support. So if there's an issue with the product, handling returns, handling customer questions about a product, all that work and effort is outsourced to a seller. This is also called an inverted firm, where the majority of the work is done by an outside agency or third party. There is still some additional work as a marketplace operator you have to do. So you set global terms and conditions, but the nice thing about that is you set them once. That one-time term and condition applies to dozens of sellers, hundreds of sellers, thousands of sellers, or in the case of Walmart and Amazon, millions of sellers abide by that one global set of terms and conditions by which they have to work. There's still also the effort of recruiting sellers, managing them, paying them, but a lot of that can be automated and streamlined at scale. And we'll talk a little about that in level 4. Some people may worry, well, if I have a marketplace, it's going to be the wild, wild west like eBay, and the old rumors of people selling human organs or crazy things on Amazon, on eBay that you don't want to have, tainting your brand and your marketplace. You can certainly curate your products, ensuring that you don't have any categories you don't want to have listed or associated with your brands. Even automate a lot of that so that anything that's questionable can be automatically restricted from being entered into the system, and still have that human process of curating the products that are going onto your marketplace. So there's third-party sellers. There may be, again, dozens, hundreds, thousands, or millions of third-party sellers. They'll have their own inventory. And not only does this enable you to scale your SKU count, your offerings, increase your margins, but also provides additional resiliency into your supply chain. We had one client where they had one distribution center in California that got shut down with COVID, and their business was essentially shut down when their one DC distribution center was unable to have employees go in as a non-essential business. So they could not fulfill any products, and their entire business essentially shut down. This is a multi-$100 million business that got shut down because their one DC could no longer fulfill orders. Here, when you have thousands of virtual fulfillment centers with different sellers, you have a much more resilient supply chain. Another example of that was with Etsy, the marketplace for typically craft goods. They were able to supply masks from people at home, custom designing their own masks, or small organizations selling masks when the big retailers weren't able to stock masks and sell them during the pandemic. So level 4, this is where you have quantitative management. So not just looking at the numbers, but using the numbers to automate the system. So you can automate a lot of the seller management. So incentivize sellers when they get seller ratings above a certain number of stars, they get a certain number of volume, they get 1 or 2% less commission, or they get featured as the featured seller, or vice versa, the opposite. Instead of the carrot, you use the stick. If your seller rating drops below 3.5 stars, you're no longer featured on the site. And if you drop below 3 stars, you're suspended as a seller. Or if it takes you more than 24 hours to respond to customer queries, or you don't issue refunds in sufficient time, or all types of automated management of those sellers. And same with the products that those sellers are selling. So based on the customer ratings of those, you can optimize your categories. You can optimize your commission structures based on different categories. Is this 15%, 20%, 25% based on the categories, what's selling? Using a lot of those analytics to optimize your margin and sales profit based on a lot of that data. Not only that, but you can make decisions such as 1P to 3P or 3P to 1P conversions. And I'll explain what that is. 1P typically means first-party goods that you stock in your inventory, often also in your physical stores if you have brick and mortar stores. 3P is third-party products stocked and shipped by third-party sellers. If you see from the data that there's a fast-moving third-party product, you may, like Amazon often does, bring those in to stock those third-party goods yourself, meaning from that brand, you keep it in your distribution center, or you may even decide to private label or private brand manufacture or produce those products yourself based on the data. As your catalog grows, in the example Walmart, 10 times the size, you get a lot more data, a lot more customer information, what's selling, what's not selling. Or vice versa. If you have products that are seasonal, not selling well, they're too hard to ship, your margin's too low on them, shift those to third-party sellers and let third-party sellers sell those goods while you take them out of those low-margin goods or low-frequency goods out of your distribution centers where you have limited, valuable distribution center space. So in the 5th level, the top level, is where you start optimizing. So Amazon, Walmart, others are really great at leveraging some of the new benefits of this scale. So this could be an example here in red on the bottom is a service provider. So you can extend your product marketplace with a services marketplace. On Amazon, if you buy, let's say, an electrical product for your home, they'll offer to have a service person come out and install that electrical product. And that's not, of course, not Amazon employees. There's a third-party service providers doing that delivery. TaskRabbit, a company that IKEA bought, can help assemble your furniture or do all kinds of different services for you as a services marketplace, from standing in line to cleaning up your yard, to assembling IKEA furniture. You can extend your marketplace globally. You can integrate your marketplace into a physical brick and mortar store. You can have all types of different integrations. Amazon has dozens and dozens of innovations, and we have that detailed a little bit more description in our white paper. So those are the 5 levels of the marketplace maturity model. Again, that's available in that white paper. I'll show the link again at the end of the presentation. Let's talk a little bit about the functionality and the architecture and a kind of a non-technical view of what are some of the business functions and the data that how a marketplace operates, which make it a little different than traditional e-commerce. So traditional marketplaces are 2-party marketplaces. You can actually have 3- and 4-party marketplaces. Here we're going to look at 2-party where we have customers and sellers. An example of a 3-party or 4-party might be Instacart, where you have the customers, you have grocers, you can have the brands that are paying for advertising, and you can have personal shoppers, personal delivery people as multiple parties in a marketplace. But here we're going to make it a little bit more simple with a 2-party marketplace. We have customers up top, sellers at the bottom, and you, the marketplace operator, at the right. So we have, of course, traditional customer-facing side, which is the traditional e-commerce catalog to cart to checkout. Of course, you have search and navigation in there. You'll have order status and customer service, the traditional elements of e-commerce that have been around for a quarter century. And of course, with that, you have cloud providers for payment and tax calculation. And you, the e-commerce operator or marketplace operator, you typically interface with either through a commercial commerce platform or a homegrown or microservices architecture-based commerce platform. There's typically an admin console that you will go through, and you'll merchandise your catalog of first-party goods, manage promotions, your content management, customer management, CRM, order status, reports. Again, this may all be in the e-commerce. It may be sliced and diced into different systems. On the back end, you'll have your ERP, OMS, CRM, BI applications in-house. And that's the traditional commerce front end. We're going to add the marketplace management aspect of this. So with a marketplace operator console, you're going to approve your vendors, manage those vendors. As we talked about, how are they performing? What are their star ratings? What are their commissions? Have they been paid? You can curate the categories, the products that are going to be introduced into your marketplace, look at third-party order status, manage the shipping configuration. So third-party sellers can be located all over the country or globally as well. And you may slice and dice the country into different regions for different shipping times and prices and estimations of time delivery. And of course, get reports on how the marketplace is performing. So let's look at the data flow between the commerce, the marketplace, and the operator here. So first thing is the vendors will send their information. It could be static confirmation content like their name, their locations, descriptions, or you can get more sophisticated and even have a store-in-store for each seller where they can have their own catalog listed. You'll also need to import their catalog, and this is typically harmonized in terms of the taxonomy of their catalog plus your catalog, so that as your scale grows, it's easier to do searches and manage the content. Offers, unlike products, offers are faster moving data, which is related to a product. So a product might be, let's say, an iPhone or an iPhone case, but the offers would be the inventory, the price, the availability, the shipping time. All of that's going to change quickly. So prices, inventory, shipping times, those may change quickly. So those get updated more frequently as the seller's inventory and pricing changes. We also, as the orders go through the customer's cart, you want to confirm the inventory is available, and then it can be delivered in the time estimated. The seller is going to have to actually accept that order. And again, we want to have sellers that are going to be very responsive and high acceptance rate of their orders that they receive. Provide shipping information. At that checkout time, we do payment and tax. Something important to know about the tax calculation is it's based not in the traditional mode in which you, the retailer, have a tax nexus and the customer has a nexus, and those two determine what the tax rate is going to be. But it's actually the location of the buyer, the customer, and the location of the seller. So tax calculation is a little bit different in a marketplace. We get order updates here. So the order status from the seller, is it shipped? What's the tracking number? All that information gets back. And we also handle the settlement with the seller once the shipment has been received by the customer. And then at the end, again, the payment goes to the sellers. That 20%, the 80% that goes to the sellers, whereas 20% commission, or again, that could be 15, 20, 25%, whatever commission structure you set up, is retained by the marketplace operator, and 20% or 80% or so goes to the sellers. And of course, we're going to also have some messaging in there. If the customer wants to ask a question about a product, if there's a question with the order, if there's a refund requested, something needs to be replaced. So their whole messaging, which helps minimize platform leakage, meaning buyers going directly to sellers, or have performance management, the ratings and reviews of the sellers. And last but not least, there'll be reporting that goes back into your system about how those. So let's look at how you implement a marketplace. On this slide, we're going to look at marketplace enablement steps. So how can you implement your own marketplace as a marketplace operator? So we're going to look at 4 main stages: how you do an assessment and you look at the strategy, implement an MVP, we recommend minimum viable product as a fast deployment, go to a full deployment, and then on to ongoing operations. So let's first look at the strategy and business aspects. First in that assessment and planning. And again, we have a detail on this. We're not going to go into each one of these activities here, but looking at the strategy, the competitive analysis, the organizational design, how you would hire or marketplace managers and so forth. In the business prep elements, we're going to start looking at category selections, curation. What are those terms and conditions and the commission grid? What UX changes do you need to make? For example, there may be multiple sellers of a product, multiple options for purchasing. So we want to make some of those UX changes on the front end. What are the shipping options going to be? How are you going to measure your sellers? That's some of the business prep. And then once you get into the operations, there's the ongoing seller recruitment, onboarding, support, managing the categories, the product selections, the pricing, the reporting, and enhancements on the platform. So that's the strategy and the business aspects of a marketplace. And then on the technology side, we have the actual build of the minimum viable product. So setting up the data, the taxonomy, some of those integrations we talked about, integrating with the sellers, making sure that catalog information and order information gets sent back and forth, some of the testing and going forward on that. And then we can start enhancing after the MVP is launched. We recommend launching an MVP as quickly as possible. That can be as quick as three months or so. More complex marketplaces may take several months more. Then we start looking at platform enhancements, some enhanced integrations, more automation of the seller onboarding and order updates, order status, tuning the performance, more analytics and reporting, optimizing things with your promotions and coupons, doing some multivariate or split testing of A/B testing. If you want to expand into international markets and including integrating into the brick and mortar side of a digital experience and ongoing support and enhancements. So some of this, again, the time of these can vary based on if we're doing this from scratch with a custom marketplace on top of an e-commerce platform. But what we typically recommend now is using a commercial platform like Miracle as a platform that has a lot of these capabilities built in, which is a great platform for the marketplace side of the equation. Let's look at two recent successes. We've launched dozens of different marketplaces, some custom built. These are two that were recently launched in the last few months. A marketplace by a billion-dollar bookseller. People would think that must be Amazon, but actually Indigo is a very successful Canadian bookseller. And with this client, we built out a marketplace for Thoughtful, which adds third-party gift giving and guided selling as an extension to their e-commerce platform. Successful launch with Miracle as the platform there. Motherly, another site that we recently launched, a lifestyle brand for new mothers and the different life cycles of the journey of motherhood, adds products from third-party sellers for those mothers who are looking to access those additional items that Motherly does not sell themselves. All right, so that takes us through the slides I had presented. We'll open it up now for questions from the audience.
All right, hey everybody, this is Tom Gatos. I'm a CMO of McFadyen Digital. I'm going to be moderating these questions here, and we've actually had a bunch come in. There's 7 so far. It looks like 1 is kind of duplicative, asking about the pandemic situation. A lot of good stuff here, though, so keep them coming. Any questions for Tom about marketplace, retail, anything like that, please type it into the chat or the question and answer box, and we'll get it asked here. So the first one here is about platform, Tom, and it says you mentioned Miracle as a marketplace platform. What do you think of VTEX or any other options for marketplaces?
Okay, great. So VTEX is another good option out there. We like Miracle as sort of the enterprise class marketplace to add on to an existing e-commerce platform. VTEX is also a good platform. It has a different paradigm or different model. Where in that architecture diagram or the conceptual model, we showed the e-commerce customer-facing side and the marketplace or the marketplace operator and seller-facing side. VTEX kind of combines all that together. Their history has been as a e-commerce customer-facing platform, sort of the Shopify of Latin America, with great success down there with growth in the U.S. now. But with VTEX, you really have to run both their e-commerce front end as the commerce engine and the marketplace model. It also has more of a connected commerce is their phrase for it. So it enables the thousands of different retailers that are using the VTEX platform to share a catalog. So you don't have to do as much recruiting of third-party sellers to build up your catalog. Willing other retailers can easily add their catalog onto your catalog and really connect those catalogs of multiple retailers into one marketplace or multiple marketplace platforms. There are other technologies as well. Typically tend to be more on the mid-size or small SMB businesses like Webcool or Unergy, which can be extensions onto Magento or other platforms. Those do have some challenges in scaling. As you start getting into thousands, tens of thousands of sellers and 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures of catalog items in your catalog, that definitely puts additional stress on there. And a lot of those lower end platforms are not architected to scale to that level of that ability for robustness, but they can work for smaller marketplaces that, again, for the SMB or mid-market solutions, those are good alternatives that we've implemented as well. So different alternatives for different business models.
All right, thanks, Tom. Good answer. All right, so this one is I'm Frankensteining together 3 separate questions, so forgive me whoever asked these, but I'll do my best to paraphrase them, but they're all very similar, and it's basically related to the pandemic situation. And the questions boil down to, how has this affected retailers going online and investing kind of in this model? Because since this is a paradigm, someone used paradigm change as in their question asking this, but basically what's been the impact and effectiveness of the marketplace model for retailers, and how's that been affected by the pandemic situation?
Good questions, and it does tie into that supply chain resiliency I kind of hinted at earlier with examples of Etsy third-party sellers producing masks. And one of our clients that had a single distribution center and how their whole business was shut down with that. So what it does is it broadens your options for fulfillment. And also, not only in pandemics, but generally, it's I mentioned a phrase, inverted firm. That's something the fellows from that wrote the book, The Platform Revolution, or about the platform economy, where you have a small number of people inside of your firm, but huge number of external third parties that are doing work for you. Like the example of Craigslist, which is somewhat of a marketplace. They don't actually consummate the transactions, but that grew to $1 billion in GMV with less than 100 people in their firm. All the other transactions were happening outside of Craigslist. Again, that's not a true transactional marketplace, but in an inverted firm, you see a huge external parties working and collaborating and providing that resiliency or parallel processing, if you will, in terms of merchandising, fulfilling, customer support, sourcing, all the activities that are typically done internally in a traditional first-party e-commerce organization. It provides the scale, the resiliency, the variety. Again, teams can be geographically distributed, working from home. A lot of third-party sellers are small mom and pops operating out of their garage or basement. So you do get a lot of variety and redundancy from that model. Good redundancy, not bad redundancy. High availability may be a better phrase.
Great. We also have a question here about SEO, and the question is, how important is SEO for digital retail? And I think in the spirit of the marketplace model here, could you speak just a little bit about how important SEO is and some of the advantages in terms of the search engine visibility and indexability and whatnot that the marketplace impacts?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So SEO and paid search are critical for retail and online retail e-commerce. The benefit of a marketplace is you get essentially free long tail content and products. So when somebody's looking for that unique product that you would probably never carry as your own inventory, yet a third-party seller added onto your site, and you show up in the Google or Bing search results because that product is on your site, and maybe you automate the Google product catalog feeds to get your e-commerce catalog into Google and more easily searchable, you're going to get that free traffic from the third party loading their catalog of third party items into your site, driving the traffic. It's part of that virtuous cycle of more products drives more buyers, and once you have more buyers on your site, you get more sellers. That flywheel keeps spinning and getting more and more content, more catalog, more SEO, more customers, more sellers, and keeps spinning and growing and getting larger and larger.
Nice, and that's great. And then, you know, as a marketer myself, I will say that you know, just as Tom was saying, the more SKUs, the deeper the count on that in terms of sellers and product availability, the better. And that also extends into Google Shopping and shopping extensions like that too, right? Where you're listing your marketplace items essentially on another marketplace to really broaden the pool. That really starts to have a compounding effect. So there's a lot of really interesting and positive SEO benefits that come from marketplace model. Here's a really good question, actually. I was going to go with something else.
I'll add one more point to that. You know, a lot of the statistics have shown that people now start their searches on marketplaces instead of searching on Google. So even Amazon's ranking, more and more search traffic starts on Amazon and Walmart as well, as Walmart's marketplace has grown and they've gotten to the millions of SKUs in their platform. So people start searching on the marketplaces because they know there's a better chance of finding products there because of the bigger catalog. Sorry to interrupt.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, we have a Walmart question actually that I'm going to get to next, but this one was just too good because you had spoken a little bit about the quality of items being listed on a marketplace earlier in the presentation, and you know the examples of organs being listed, all sorts of crazy things, and just quality not being there. This is one related to the quality of orders. So we're a large footwear retailer, very high CSAT scores, and have been considering a marketplace. There's been concern internally about damaging the brand name if they don't select the right sellers to include, making the customers unhappy. And the question from that is, how have you seen brands combat this issue and maintain a high level of quality and customer service when you're dealing with so many sellers that are third parties and outside of your organization?
Good question, and there are multiple ways to address that. First off is the human merchandiser curation of the sellers, the categories, and the products that are being onboarded into the marketplace. This is typically a concern that we see a lot of in-house merchandisers when they may fear the threat of an external party coming in to merchandise the site for them. There's actually additional roles and opportunity for the in-house merchandisers as they become more of a marketplace manager or a third-party seller manager in managing larger catalog sizes, because they can amplify their work across many sellers with larger catalogs through that, again, manual process of curation. The merchandisers don't tend to not have to then enter the description, the text, the SEO optimization, take the digital photography, all that can be outsourced, but still that can be curated in a human-based process with the internal marketplace operators, merchandisers doing that. But at larger scale, a lot of that can also be automated through a variety of different, in that level 4 quantitative management tier of the marketplace maturity model we discussed. So some of the metrics are the star rating of the products, the star rating of the sellers, the time to respond about accepting an order, the time to ship an order, the customer satisfaction with that seller, response time for queries, how refunds or replacements are handled by the seller. So there's a lot of metric driven management of the sellers and the catalog and the categories, which can automate at scale that larger volume after you've grown beyond the human managed merchandising and curation process. You can have the automated systems do that at scale. So both human and automated processes for ensuring you have that properly curated and managed catalog and customer experience.
Nice. And I promised the Walmart question, but this one is too on the nose here and on topic that just came in. Since you were just speaking about the third parties, how to control the quality and onboarding and things like that. The question here from Maria is, how can you expand your marketplace with services like guided excursions?
That's a Great question. And that's sort of that level 5 of the marketplace maturity model we talked about, where you optimize that. I should mention where Amazon, if you buy an electric switch or a ceiling fan, you can have a third-party service person come in and install it from Amazon. Maybe a little bit different now during the pandemic, but we've seen both product and services marketplaces add experiences or guided excursions onto their e-commerce or their marketplace. So Airbnb, for example, does that a lot as well. You don't just rent a room or a bed, you can also get a tour or sightseeing excursion while you're visiting a certain city. That can be certainly upsold, cross-sold with products that are being sold on a product-based marketplace. And in fact, the services marketplace represent a huge opportunity going forward. Roughly 70% of consumer spend is on services, like handyman services or lawn services, whatnot. But only 7% of those services are digitally sourced, meaning they're bought via the internet. Versus with e-commerce or retail, we see huge spike now, but over 20% of physical goods, e-commerce or retail, is being consumed or sourced digitally. That's the actual transaction. The amount of sourcing is even higher as you look at what's researched online. So there's a huge opportunity for that, getting from 7% to 70% in the services world. But there are also some challenges in adding services, because there are definitely different opinions about the quality of service. Everybody has their different opinion of how the restaurant was, or how the Groupon experience was, or how the tour was in the different areas. So there are different ways of rating and ranking that, and ensuring that both the seller and the buyer have their opportunity to share their opinion on that. Typically, there's a voucher, like the Groupon model, where you get a voucher for services, then you go and redeem it, and then the service provider only gets paid upon redemption of the coupon. So the variety of different models there. Services also have a number of factors, typically being geo fenced or ring fenced around geo fenced around a certain number of miles of a zip code where you want to experience that or have that service performed. There's also challenges with scheduling. So you have to ensure that once a service is purchased, or the schedule is available for viewing by the consumer of when a service can be performed. So a number of different use case requirements for services versus product marketplaces, but it's definitely a very lucrative, very big market for that. And we've seen dozens of companies, these unicorns, grow to billion-dollar plus services marketplaces in 5 to 10 years. From Instacart now is a $14 billion valuation. Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, a lot of these marketplaces all doing billions of dollars of GMV each. Quick scale, and again, all inverted firms. It's a third party doing the driving, doing the hosting of the hotel room, doing the pick and pack of the goods at the grocery store via Instacart. So great opportunity there, a lot of scale, and a lot of opportunity in the market for services marketplaces.
Nice. And also the thoughtful .co marketplace that was one of our case studies here is a great example of adding services and adding experiences into the mix as well. It's been a great experience for Indigo. So we're at about a minute and a half left here. So there was one final. I'll turn it over to you, Tom, for closing. And just the final question was asking about Walmart Plus, and then why don't you answer that and close this out?
Sure. So Walmart Plus is their answer to Amazon Prime. It's their subscription model. I think $98, $99 a year. Unlike the $119 for Amazon Prime, well, depending on which version of Prime you have, offering same one-day delivery, especially on grocery, discounts on fuel. So they have some benefits with their 4,700 physical stores that Amazon does not have. They do not yet have the digital media, the streaming music and movies, but that wouldn't be surprised to see that. We really see Walmart innovating and advancing in their marketplace, from the Shopify connection that I mentioned, adding the opportunity to add 1 million sellers that are running off Shopify, to some of their other offerings that they've been rolling out, like Nextdoor, Neighbors Helping Neighbors. They're really scaling up their marketplace quite a bit and realizing that's kind of the future of retail for them. I think that's probably our time. I'd like to thank NRF and the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity, NRF, and thank you for attending our session here.